One of the biggest disappointments of the Knicks this past season was the play of Julius Randle. When the Knicks signed Randle, he was fresh off averaging 21 points and 9 boards a game in New Orleans. It was thought that while the Knicks didn't get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, they landed a talented player in Randle who could not only be a nice addition to the Knicks' young core, but help make the team a lot more competitive. Well, it looks like a full season of Julius Randle spinning in the help defenders and creating turnovers was more than enough for the Knicks because they reportedly remain open to trading him.
Do me a favor, please. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Shit, I'm saying.
The first video on this channel, I explained why the Knicks needed to get rid of Randle. If you want to watch that video, I'll leave a link in the description. To summarize, while Randle does put up impressive numbers, those numbers don't really equate to helping the team win, making him an empty stats player. While he does score and rebound the ball well, his awful defense, lack of shooting, and low basketball IQ negates a lot of the things he does well. Furthermore, he's also a really horrible fit with the two most important young guys on the Knicks, being RJ Barrett and Mitchell Robinson. Getting rid of Randle is addition by subtraction. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Julius Randle is trash. Obviously, if you can average 20 and 10, you're a very good player. Randle is just a very poor fit on this team. But I also don't think Randle is as good as his stats would suggest. Randle can never be a first or a second option on a championship team. Ideally, I think Randle is a really good scorer off a contender's bench like Montrezl Harrell. So in this video, I'm going to break down 5 potential trades to send Randle packing. Before we get started, if you like videos like this, I got plenty more of them on the channel, so please check them out and subscribe. I want to thank everyone for all your support. This channel recently just hit 500 subs. Let's get this channel to 1,000 subs before the month of June is over. Lastly, I want to make a quick shout out to Wally Zialcita, who wanted a video on the prospects of trading Julius Randle. So guys, if you want a video on any topic, just let me know in the comments. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Trade number 1. For the first trade, we're going to start off with what's suggested in the thumbnail. Julius Randle, Ignas Brazdeikis, and a 2021 first round pick from Dallas to the Pacers for Victor Oladipo. Now, I do know this trade is a bit of a stretch, but it is possible that the Pacers would be willing to part with Depot. For one thing, it appears that the Pacers have landed their true franchise player in Malcolm Brogdon. It was also recently reported that Oladipo turned down a 4-year, $80 million extension from the Pacers. This is a really tough situation for the Pacers because Oladipo at his peak is certainly worth a max contract, but there's no guarantee he could get back to that level, and in his current state, he's definitely not worth the money that he probably wants. Suddenly, Oladipo seems very expendable for the Pacers. It is possible that the Pacers would try to move on for Oladipo if they think he's not worth the money that he probably wants. In this trade, the Pacers are going to get back Julius Randle, who could be a stud off their bench, Ignas Brazdeikis, a young player in the Knicks G League who has been totally killing it, and Dallas first round pick in 2021. From the Pacers' perspective, they take this trade because they get some value for Oladipo before he potentially leaves them in free agency. Now, while this might sound like an underwhelming return, remember, Oladipo's trade value is diminished by the fact that he hasn't been healthy in pretty much 2 years, and the fact that there's only 1 year left on his contract. I highly doubt any team is going to offer a king's ransom when he's set to be a free agent next offseason. For the Knicks, Victor Oladipo would give them a potential all-star to add to their young core. Now, Oladipo would have to turn back the clock a couple years to reach that level, but if he does, he can make the Knicks a lot better. Of course, Oladipo is a questionable fit with RJ Barrett because they both play the same position, but with RJ being 6'7", he can easily slide over to the small forward position. The next concern is shooting and spacing on the floor, but remember, Oladipo is a career 35% three-point shooter, and while RJ only shot 32% from 3 his rookie year, I do believe his shooting will improve. It is a questionable fit, but RJ Barrett and Victor Oladipo could potentially be the Knicks duo of the future. Of course, The Pacers could opt to not trade Oladipo and hope that he ups his trade value next season. But if they do put him on the trade market, this is a potential trade package that gets Julius Randle off the Knicks. Trade number 2. So in the number 2 trade, the Knicks send Julius Randle to the Charlotte Hornets, and in return, they get back Cody Zeller. Now this trade is just going to be a straight swap with no draft picks being involved. Now I believe this is a more realistic trade because at the trade deadline, the Hornets and the Knicks were having trade talks involving Julius Randle. One deal on the table was a trade that would have sent Julius Randle, Dennis Smith Jr., and a first-round pick to the Hornets, and in return, the Knicks would have got back Terry Rozier and Malik Monk. Now both teams never reached a final agreement. Let's all be thankful that this trade didn't go down, because sending the Hornets a first-round pick would have been very, very stupid. Let's all be thankful that Steve Mills isn't making any more decisions because that guy was completely clueless. Anyway, I believe this is a trade that's a win-win for both teams involved. The Knicks get rid of a player who doesn't fit the team and get a player who does. Now, Cody Zeller may not have lived up to his draft selection as he was the number 4 overall pick in 2013, but he's a really solid rotational big. On the season, he averaged 11 points and 7 boards a game on 52% shooting in 23 minutes, which is pretty solid production for a reserve. The Knicks don't have another true center on the roster besides Mitchell Robinson. Cody Zeller gives the Knicks a good backup center to play behind Mitch, and if Mitch ever gets hurt, Cody Zeller could step up and give the Knicks a solid starting center. Zeller is a good defender, a good rebounder, and on offense, he does everything you need a modern big to do, including setting strong screens, rolling hard to the basket, and hitting his free throws. For the Hornets, it doesn't make sense that they would trade for Julius Randle as they were in discussions to trade for him at the trade deadline. While the Hornets do have a nice young core on the team, which includes Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham, and PJ Washington, they still need more talent if they want to actually make the playoffs. Julius Randle would add a really productive player on the team that would help Charlotte improve. He wouldn't start because they already have PJ Washington, but Randle could be the first player for Charlotte off their bench. As stated before, I don't really think Randle is a great starter, but he could legitimately compete for the 6th Man of the Year award if he came off the bench. I think this is a trade that could potentially work for both teams involved. Trade number 3. So the third trade is going to be similar to the second trade, in which is just going to be a player-for-player trade with no draft picks involved. So in the third trade, the Knicks send Julius Randle to the Orlando Magic for Aaron Gordon. The reason why the Magic would do this is simply because Aaron Gordon is a player who hasn't worked out for them, and I'm sure they would love to trade him for a better player that fits their roster. Aaron Gordon has had a weird up and down career for the Magic. He was the number 4 overall pick in 2014. He was a highly ranked athlete due to his good size and insane athleticism. His first 3 years in the league were really underwhelming, and it was looking like he was a draft bust. But in 2018, Aaron Gordon finally had his breakout year. That season, he averaged 17 points and 7 boards a game and shot a career-high 34% from 3. Since then, he's regressed, and this year, he only averaged 14 points and 7 boards and shot 30% from 3. Aaron Gordon just doesn't really fit the Magic anymore. The past couple of seasons has made it pretty clear that Jonathan Isaac is the future of the Orlando Magic, and he plays the same position as Aaron Gordon. So it makes sense why they would want to trade Gordon. They're going to want a player that's a better fit for their team. In fact, the Magic reportedly tried hard to trade Aaron Gordon during this year's trade deadline. From the Magic's perspective, the reason they do this trade is because they get rid of a player that they no longer want and get back a player who's still pretty productive in Julius Randle and can potentially help them get deeper in the playoffs. From the Knicks' perspective, the reason they do this trade is because they're also getting rid of a player they don't want in Julius Randle, but they're getting a young player in Aaron Gordon who at 24 can be a potential building block. Sure, he lacks the outside shooting that's ideal for a power forward, but Gordon is still very athletic and he's an excellent defender. If Gordon could just go back to what he did last year when he shot 35% from 3, he's easily a quality starter for the Knicks at the 4 position. Trade number 4. So in the 4th trade to get Julius Randle off the team, the Knicks send Julius Randle to Denver, and in return, they get back Gary Harris and a future first-round pick. Gary Harris is a player that's similar to Aaron Gordon in the sense that he was drafted in 2014, had a breakout season a couple years ago, but he's regressed since then. And it's gotten to the point that the Nuggets really want to get rid of him. In fact, during this year's trade deadline, the Denver Nuggets reportedly made Gary Harris very available. So clearly, they really wanted to trade him. In 2014, Gary Harris averaged 17.5 points on 48% shooting from the field and 39% from three while being a pest on defense. But in the last 2 years, Harris has been injury prone and his shooting has fallen off a cliff, shooting around 42% from the field and 33% from three his past 2 years. While Harris has fallen off, he's still only 25 and he's still a good defender. A change of scenery might be what Harris needs to bounce back. If Harris can get his shooting back, he could be a nice rotation piece for the Knicks. They can start Harris at the 2 and RJ Barrett at the 3. The Nuggets will do this because, as stated before, they want to get rid of Gary Harris. Randle could start at the 4 for them next to Nikola Jokic. Millsap is still solid, but he's old and injury prone. Randle gives the Nuggets a potential upgrade at the 4, which is what they need since they need more firepower to compete in the West. The Nuggets also will throw in a 2021 first-round pick since there's still 2 more years left and about $40 million left on his contract, while Randle pretty much just has 1 more year left. Since the Knicks are giving the Nuggets cap relief, it's only fair that they get a first-round pick as a sweetener, and getting a pick from Denver would help the Knicks rebuild. Trade number 5. So in the final trade, the Knicks send Julius Randle over to the Spurs for a combined package of Patty Mills, Trey Lyles, and Derek White. Now you might ask, why would the Spurs do this? But Randle might be a player that the Spurs could be interested in helping to develop into a winning player. The Spurs have helped to turn countless NBA rejects into solid contributing players. Guys like Rudy Gay, Danny Green, and Jonathan Simmons are amongst many players that the Spurs were able to turn into really good players. With the right coaching, the Spurs could help turn Randle from a guy who gets nice stats but doesn't really help you win to a player who actually makes an all-star leap. The Spurs do have LaMarcus Aldridge, but he's already 34, while Randle is still pretty young at only 25 years old. From the Knicks' perspective, the main reason why they're doing this trade is because of Derek White. Trey Lyles and Patty Mills are really just involved in the trade in order to help match salaries. The real return is Derek White. White is still a young and intriguing prospect for the Knicks. He has good size for the point guard position at 6'4" and 190 pounds. Now, I believe White has potential to be a high-quality point guard in this league, maybe even an all-star. But right now, he isn't getting the minutes and the opportunities for that to happen. On the Spurs, White is playing behind DeMar DeRozan, who's a volume shooter, and DeJounte Murray. What White brings to the table is that he's a very good defender, he's good at getting to the basket, and he's a solid playmaker. White has also become a solid three-point shooter as he shot 35% from 3 this past season. White really showed off his potential in last year's playoffs when he scored 36 points on the Denver Nuggets to steal a win in Game 3. Derek White is the main reason why the Knicks should do this trade because it gives them a solid player who can be their long-term point guard of the future. So there you have it, sports fans. Those are 5 trades that I think that the Knicks should look into this offseason that gets Julius Randle off the team while also giving them a solid return. So in the comment section below, go ahead and tell me out of all these 5 trades, which one you like the best. Or you can tell me if you were to trade Julius Randle this offseason, what exactly would you demand for him? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And with that said, thanks for watching and have a good day.